Hello, Year One. It's the first lesson of this half term, but it's our last lesson looking at Hajj and looking at the pilgrimage that Muslims make to Mecca. And I thought for this last lesson, we could go on a virtual trip to Mecca itself. Now, this is going to be really interesting because for most of us who aren't Muslim, we'll never get a chance to do this, as you have to be a Muslim not only to go to Hajj, but to actually enter the city of Mecca. Some of you watching this might be Muslim yourselves, in which case you might go on the Hajj at some point in your life. But for us, we'll have to do this virtually, and not just because we're stuck at home, but for that very reason. So we're going to start at school, but I thought we'd start really zoomed out and have a look at the world. Let's head into London. And of course, our school, Charles Dickens School, is in the south of London over here. So this is Waterloo Station, and this is London Bridge Station. And our school is in between those two. We walk along from Borough Tube Station and down, and there we have it, Charles Dickens Primary School. That should look familiar to you. You can see the rooftop and the courtyard. You can see your classrooms down here, and you can see the Muga, as well as the library and the eco classroom. Now, we are going to take the tube from Charles Dickens School. We're going to take it all the way outside of London, all the way across to the west to here, to Heathrow Airport. And Heathrow Airport is one of the biggest airports in the world. It's the biggest airport in London, and it's going to be where we catch our plane to go to a city called Jeddah, which is on the way to Mecca. And as you can see, there are lots of huge planes waiting here to take off. So we're going to board one of those. We're going to get on. We're going to line up on the runway. And then we're going to take off. There we go, we've taken off. It's not very exciting, but that's better. And we're going to fly over London. And we're going to fly across the English Channel, over France. We might be very lucky if it's a sunny day. We're going to get to see the beautiful mountains of the Swiss Alps below us. We're going to follow the coast of Albania, Croatia. We're going to head all the way down here to Greece, which is made up of lots of islands. We're going to go across the Mediterranean Sea. We're going to hit the Middle East here in Israel. And then we are going to head down over the Middle East to the city of Jeddah here. And we're going to come into land. And I want you to tell me what you think your first impression of Saudi Arabia is from coming into land here at Jeddah. Like, do you think it's a hot country? Do you think it's a cold country? Do you think it's a wet country or a dry country? Do you think it's a rich country or a poor country? Well, we can see that there's some high-rise buildings here, but look at how dry things look. It's very dry and very hot. And here's the runway at Jeddah Airport. We're going to land there. And look at this very, very modern airport, isn't it? Very unusual design. And this here is the special terminal that exists just for the Hajj. So that's really interesting. They have a special, or is it here? Sorry, this is the special terminal that exists just for the Hajj. They have a special huge building just for people who are flying in. And then from Jeddah, we're going to get on a train and we're going to go to the city of Mecca. And remember, we wouldn't normally be able to do this because it is only Muslims who are allowed to visit the city of Mecca. And this is the Kaaba, which, if you remember, is the most important part of the Hajj for Muslims. It's the very centre of the huge mosque complex here in Mecca, and it's where Muhammad went in, and it's the area that his family looked after. So we can go and have a look at this on Street View. So we can see the big black box here called the Kaaba, and we can see all of the Muslims who are circling around it. Sometimes Street View does funny things to people's faces. So we can see all the Muslims who are circling around it. They're wearing those special clothes that we looked at in the first lesson, and they go round and round. So you can imagine what it's like to be there. It's hot, there's lots of people, but also it's very important for Muslims' religion. So they feel quite close to God, close to Allah, and they might be saying a prayer at the time. So we can see here, for example, as people go around the Kaaba, they often read from the Quran, which is the Muslim holy book. This chap here is reading from the Quran, and they circle around the Kaaba before getting closer and closer to it each time. So After the Kaaba, we can go into the Grand Mosque itself, which is the building that surrounds it. And let's just take a moment to look at our first impressions here. What kind of words could you use to describe what we're looking at here at the Grand Mosque? I think it's rather remarkable. It's beautiful. It's obviously what we would say is very opulent. So it's got lots of luxurious gold and brickwork. This Arabic text here is what's called calligraphy, which is special artistic writing. This is a very, very impressive building. And it might be nice to just stop here for a bit, sit down after a very hot, sweaty day, getting to Mecca, and just take in the nice, quiet, calm, peaceful surrounds of the Grand Mosque. And that's before we do the next part of the pilgrimage, or we look at it, and that's the journey between the two hills of Safa and Marwa. Remember that they walk back and forth between the two hills several times. And remember I said that those hills are inside. How impressive is that? They've put the hills underneath a big roof so that people don't get too hot when they're walking between them. There are lots of fans and air conditioning. You can see them here. And this is the hallway. So people walk in one direction, and then they walk back in the other direction, and then they walk back, and they walk back, and they walk back. And they get to the hill, and they touch the hill, and then they go back again. So it's quite unusual, really, to see a hill that's been put inside a building. That's quite a special thing to know about Mecca. Now, the next part of the journey is here. This is called the Jamrat, and this is where they collect the stones and they throw them at the huge pillars that represent the devil. And these are the pillars here. And you can see they're in a kind of tent, a little bit like the Millennium Dome or the O2. And you can see lots of people in their special clothes. Remember last lesson we looked at people who help with the Hajj? So here are some people whose job it is to go around and collect up the rubbish that gets caused by the Hajj. And what they do is they go along and they throw stones at these huge pillars. Here's another picture of them. And the whole experience of going on the Hajj is that it's very built up. There's lots of big concrete structures, lots of, like this looks a bit like a parking garage, but it's actually a multi-story sort of walkway to help all the people who want to go and throw these stones at the Jamrat. There's lots of escalators, lots of lifts to help people who are disabled. It's quite a really special experience for the people who go on the Hajj. And there you can see more people helping out with the bags, lots of pilgrims on their journey. And then the last place I wanted to look at was here, and this is Mount Arafat, which you have to either get on the train or you have to go on the bus to get to, because it's quite a long way away from Mecca. And this is where Muhammad preached his last sermon, and this is where Muslims come and spend the night in prayer, or they pray here and then they spend the night nearby. And you can just see how many people there are in this special place. They've all got umbrellas to protect them from the really hot sun, and they're all crowded up here on the stones. Some of them have left some graffiti in Arabic. Some people are praying, some people are talking. You can see these ladies here. She has her hands up in a prayer position, reading the Quran. So that's another really interesting place. It's Mount Arafat. And then, of course, we would head back. So Mount Arafat is all the way over here somewhere. It's going to load. Where is Arafat? Anyway, oh, it's not facing north, that's right. So Mount Arafat is over here. Here. And then you'd head back through Mina, back to Mecca, and then back to Jeddah. And then we fly back from Jeddah, back to London, head back to Charles Dickens, and wait for your parents to come pick you up from the school. So I hope you've enjoyed that last lesson of the half term. You've done amazingly well keeping up this half term. The RE work we've done is really quite challenging and really hopefully quite interesting for you. So I really hope that you've enjoyed looking at Mecca and the Hajj, and that when you meet someone who's been on the Hajj, you'll be able to talk to them about it. Starting next week, we've got a new scheme of work called What Does It Mean to Be a Christian? So we're looking at Christianity instead of Islam, and hopefully you'll enjoy that just as much. Do remember to send me any work you've done. Send me your Mecca map or any drawings that you've done this half term. I'd love to see them. And I will see you next week. Have a wonderful weekend. Bye, everyone.